From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. I am Nick Beres. It's Wednesday. Great show as always on tap. A chance where we may be able to help you or answer some of your questions about the law. We're not talking necessarily about big cases in the news. What we're talking about are cases you may be dealing with. Do you think you have an issue where you might need a lawyer? If you do need a lawyer, how are you going to find one? How are you going to pay for one? Okay, how does that all play out? And we'll go into some specifics here. We've got a lawyer on this morning who's going to talk about his specialty, but we can also take general questions for Ask a Legal Expert. There's the number, 737-7587. And our regular legal expert joining us this morning, of course, is Andy Allman.
How are you?
Andy?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you. You're looking very dapper and sharp, and I'm wearing a sweater and a shirt without a tie. It's just been so cold, and during the day I'm running around. Suits, even the worsted wool ones, and that's a very nice one, don't keep me as warm out there.
That's right.
So I tend to try to dress down when I know I'm going to be out in the cold. But thanks for coming on.
Sure, my pleasure.
All right, let's remind folks, the line's open, but let's talk again, and I always do this at the top of the show with you. Remind them again what your specialty is, what kind of the cases are that you tend to handle the most.
We, at our firm, we do employment law, some labor law, some civil rights work. We mainly represent employees in the workplace who've been denied maybe some FMLA leave, medical leave under the Family Medical Leave Act, employees who've been wrongfully terminated, maybe because they've had a workers' compensation claim, may have been terminated because they blew the whistle on something that was going on in the workplace. They may have been terminated or suspended or demoted, not being paid the same because of their gender, their race,
discrimination,
age, discrimination in the workplace, their religion, national origin. We handle unemployment compensation claims, and then of course you've got in any kind of an employment law case, you've got to kind of get through what's called the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the Tennessee Human Rights Commission. And we help employees get through those processes, which are required. You're required to exhaust those remedies, if you will, before you can even file a lawsuit. But anybody that feels like they've been wrongfully terminated or otherwise discriminated against in the workplace, we try and help those people out. You know,
I saw the other day, or was talking to a friend of mine who was looking at a contract that his employer was going to have him sign or something along those lines. And one of the clauses basically said, as your employer, we can terminate you at any time for any reason without cause. It more or less said something along those lines, and I'm like, well then what the heck's the point of the contract? Because it really does, and I think part of it is, at least contractually, sometimes you can write in what your annual perhaps raises will be or something like that, and they follow those guidelines so you know what you're getting year to year for the length of it. But beyond that, when you have a clause, and I've seen that in a lot of contracts, what's the point? I mean, and can those stand up when they can terminate you? And I know that means with any cause outside of the things you just described.
Correct. And that clause and those words have been used for decades, especially in this state. And a lot of the employees that we come in contact with, they have that initial impression that, my employer came up to me and told me I was too old to be working here and therefore I was fired, but I know we're an employment at will state, so I don't really have any recourse. And the answer to that is, well, no, that's not true.
Right.
Even if there is that clause, it doesn't exempt an employer from abiding by both federal and state law. And there's a list of reasons and categories why an employer cannot terminate an employee.
Right, and I guess when we talk about that clause, I'm thinking about why would, outside the reasons that would be illegal to terminate an employee because of the color of their skin or their sex or age, if someone is firing you, all right, there's going to be a reason. They don't just do it willy-nilly. If they love you and you're making them money, they're not going to fire you. So sometimes it can be not a firing but a layoff simply because they have to downsize and they're doing it across the board and they have to do it, and that's within their rights. Or sometimes they just may decide that you're not getting the job done the way it should be done and we're going to replace you. And I have no problem with an employer doing something like that.
In the example you gave about someone who has an employment contract, normally we see that if it's a valid employment contract, we see that in the context of giving protection to an employee that says, hey, you can't fire me unless you have cause. So if an employee is signing an actual employment contract and there's a clause in there that says we can fire you at any time without cause, that employee is giving up some of the protections or rights that we normally see in an employment contract, which is kind of the reason you have that contract.
Yeah, they have that. So in your opinion, as an attorney that handles this, does a contract do anything for the employee?
It can if it's a valid contract. Now, sometimes individuals will call my office and they'll say, look, I have an employment contract. And then I say, well, okay, well, you need to describe the employment contract. Well, you know, I applied, I went through the interview, and they sent me a letter or a little memorandum that was an offer that, hey, we're going to offer you this job at this much money, and these are the benefits. And I accepted that, went to work, therefore I've got a contract. In Tennessee, we don't define employment contracts that way. One of the most important facets of a valid employment contract in Tennessee is it has to be for a definite period of time. It has to have a start date and an ending date.
Right.
If there's just simply an open-ended offer of employment at no fixed period of time, there's really no employment contract there.
So you have to have a time range between the two. You start now where that contract would expire and you'd have to do a new one.
Exactly.
Something
You
like
can
that.
renew it. That's
you can
correct.
sign a 3-year contract or a 2-year deal or something like that.
That's correct.
All right, interesting. And listen, just so you know, that's where he really knows his stuff. But Andy has a great general background in the law as well. For general legal questions, we'll take those as well. So if you have that, and if it's above and beyond, we'll just say we don't know the answer to that, and then we'll try to get another lawyer on here someday that maybe can answer it. But so it is open for you. The line's up, 737-7587. Actually, we have a few we should take just before we go to the break. What do you say, Andy?
All right.
We'll go to Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Are you there, Lisa?
I am.
What can we do to help you?
Okay, I work for a fast food restaurant where they require that we wear their hat and their shirt's short sleeve. Of course, we know it's been 24 degrees outside, and they tell me I can't wear my coat because it's not an approved uniform. Can they legally not allow us to wear our coat when it's cold outside and require us to buy their coat?
Huh.
Yeah, employers have the right to say to an employee, we have a particular uniform we want you to wear. Here are your uniform options. And a lot of companies will actually charge the employee for the uniforms. And
That's interesting. So they do, what you're saying then, Lisa, is they want you to wear their uniform. And then 2, they do have a warmer outfit for cold weather, but they want you to buy that from them?
Correct.
And so your question is, do you have to do that, or could you wear your? And why is this something where you work for this establishment and you have to go outside sometimes?
Yes, I'm a delivery person.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it's a tough one. Now, I understand completely the line of thinking of, you have to wear their uniform. That makes sense. But to charge someone for the uniform, I don't know, for some reason that just kind of gets me as like, wait a second, they're bringing you in. Like here at Channel 5, we've got our news jackets that we wear where we do live shots. I'm not paying for those.
Right.
And they're nice jackets. It's very nice, and it's got the logo. But I haven't had to pay for that.
Right.
Maybe it depends on the employer.
most employers don't. I mean, most employers provide that uniform to the employees.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if you're asking for above and beyond, maybe they provide her the regular uniform. She says she's cold. She wants a jacket and they say, well, you have to wear our jacket. If you want that, you're going to have to buy it. Maybe. But
I think that may be the case.
she doesn't really have any recourse. It's their call as the employer to say, you wear our jacket or nothing at all.
Correct.
I gotcha. When I say nothing at all, I mean your regular uniform.
Yeah, that's right.
But not the jacket. All right, let's go to Donna. Donna, good morning.
Hello?
Hi, Donna. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. I don't know, but 32 years ago, I went to prison for selling drugs. And now I want to know can I get that off my record? I have not been in no trouble since.
So it was a felony, and you are still have it on your record, and does that mess you up when you go apply for jobs or things?
Absolutely.
And that was 32 years ago.
Selling drugs.
Selling drugs. It's kind of a general question. I'm not sure. I understand the whole idea of expungement and how you go about doing it. Gosh, that was a long time. No record since?
Yeah. And because it was a felony, she's lost certain rights. The right to vote would be one of them. So there are mechanisms that she can go down to the clerk's office if she can't afford an attorney, and they have some paperwork that she can fill out, asking that her record be expunged, that her rights be restored. They will then send that documentation to the district attorney's office or the U.S. attorney's office, depending on which court her case was in, get some feedback and the opinion from them. She might actually even end up talking to the prosecutor or the assistant U.S. attorney. So that person can get a feel for who it is, what their life has been like since. Have they had any subsequent charges? Are they, did they actually turn their life around at after that last one, and make a recommendation to the judge that let's expunge her record and restore her rights, or no, we need to keep this on her record. And
she's been working for 31 years with this on the record, and I certainly you don't have to wait that long to try to do exactly what Andy said. So. Yeah, get on that. I think if you've had a clean record, unless the drug crime you're talking about from 31 years ago is just something absolutely horrendous.
Correct. Yeah.
Short of that, I can't imagine them not taking a hard look at it. But there's steps, and it can take time. But go ahead, go down to the clerk's office, inquire about that. If you still live in the area where this occurred, you have to do that in that locale,
That's correct.
right? All right. We'll take a break on that question. When we come back, though, there's a bunch more waiting for you. We got some lines open, 737-7587. Ask an attorney. Free legal advice. There's no retainer here, except you have to call and watch the show. We'll be back with Andy right after this.